The Bold and the Beautiful, Brooke's tragic fate, Ridge's heartache, and the shocking truth revealed the world of the bold and the beautiful is no stranger to high-stakes drama. But the latest twist involving Brooke Logan has brought the characters and the audience to the edge of their seats. The shocking events that unfolded after Brooke's near drowning have left everyone in a state of confusion and despair. As the story unravels, fans are left wondering whether Brooke will ever regain consciousness and whether the woman they've known and loved will survive the harrowing series of events that have unfolded. With her condition growing more serious by the day, the stakes couldn't be higher, and the emotional toll on those around her is immense. The drowning incident and Brooke's critical condition, it all began with a simple, yet life-altering accident. Brooke Logan, in the midst of a turbulent moment, found herself in a dangerous situation on Nick Marone's boat. As tensions escalated between Nick and Ridge Forrester, things took a deadly turn. Nick, in a fit of jealousy and frustration over Brooke's lingering connection with Ridge, steered the boat into treacherous waters. A series of events unfolded that resulted in Brooke being thrown overboard, the force of the impact sending her plunging into the water. Despite Ridge's best efforts to save her, the powerful waves and the shallow rocks near the shore made the rescue difficult and delayed. Ridge's desperation grew as he fought to bring her back to safety, but the struggle was long and harrowing. When Ridge finally managed to pull Brooke from the water, it became clear that the damage had already been done. Brooke was unresponsive. The paramedics rushed her to the hospital, and the doctors quickly determined that she had slipped into a deep coma. The cause was clear: the lack of oxygen, the trauma from the fall, and the overall shock to her body had left Brooke in critical condition. The doctors weren't sure when or if she would wake up, and the uncertainty of her fate was taking a heavy toll on everyone involved. Ridge's pain and the growing concern as Brooke lay unconscious, Ridge's world fell apart. He sat vigil by her bedside, watching as the love of his life fought for her life, uncertain of what the future would hold. Ridge had always loved Brooke deeply, even though their relationship had been complicated over the years. Despite their ups and downs, they had shared a connection that was undeniable. Now, as Brooke lay in a coma, the fear of losing her forever haunted Ridge's every thought. The doctors delivered the grim news: Brooke's condition was serious. They explained that if she did not regain consciousness soon, her state could become permanent. Her brain activity was minimal, and the likelihood of her recovering fully was increasingly unlikely. Ridge's heart shattered as he processed the possibility that the woman he loved might never wake up, that he might never have the chance to tell her how much she meant to him. He stood by her side, praying for a miracle, hoping that she would open her eyes and return to him, but deep down, he knew that the road ahead would be filled with difficult decisions. Nick's guilt and the weight of responsibility. Meanwhile, Nick Marone, who had indirectly caused the tragic accident by steering the boat in a fit of anger, was consumed by guilt. He could not shake the feeling that he was responsible for Brooke's current condition. Had he not let his jealousy take control, had he not acted impulsively, Brooke might never have ended up in the water. Nick blamed himself for the accident, feeling as though he had betrayed not only Brooke but Ridge as well. The realization that he might have caused irreparable harm to the woman he loved and to the family they had once shared was too much for him to bear. Nick's guilt was amplified as he watched Ridge suffer, knowing that his actions had led to this point. While Ridge was left to contend with the emotional fallout of possibly losing Brooke, Nick was forced to confront the weight of his own involvement. He had always cared for Brooke, and now, with her life hanging in the balance, the consequences of his reckless behavior were becoming painfully clear. In the midst of the turmoil, Nick began to wonder whether there was anything he could do to redeem himself in the eyes of Brooke and Ridge. Could he somehow make amends for what he had done? Or was the damage irreversible, and would Brooke's life and their relationships be forever altered by the tragic events he had set in motion? The shocking diagnosis, Brooke's cancer and the devastating truth, as if the situation couldn't get any worse, a further shocking revelation came to light. As the doctors conducted routine tests on Brooke while she remained unconscious, they discovered a devastating truth. Brooke had been living with advanced liver cancer. Her condition had been kept a secret, even from her closest loved ones. The cancer had reached an advanced stage, and doctors confirmed that it was inoperable. What was even more alarming was that Brooke's alcohol abuse over the years had contributed significantly to the development of the cancer, worsening her condition. The news hit Ridge like a freight train. He had known that Brooke had struggled with alcohol addiction in the past, but he had never imagined that it had led to such a severe condition. The fact that Brooke had been silently battling cancer while trying to maintain a sense of normalcy for her family made the situation all the more tragic. Ridge, already devastated by her unconscious state, now had to face the reality that even if Brooke regained consciousness, she might not have long to live. The combination of the coma and the cancer left Ridge in a state of complete devastation. How could he handle the possibility of losing Brooke to a disease she had been fighting in silence? The woman who had been a part of his life for so long, the woman who had been his love, his confidant, and the mother of his children, was now facing an uncertain and painful future. Ridge had to come to terms with the reality that even if Brooke survived the immediate dangers of the coma, she might not have much time left. Brooke's memory loss. A new layer of tragedy ***. The doctors also expressed concerns that if Brooke did manage to wake from her coma, she might face significant memory loss. The trauma to her brain and the prolonged lack of oxygen could leave her with gaps in her memory, especially with regards to recent events. The possibility of Brooke waking up and not remembering her past, or not recognizing the people closest to her, sent shockwaves through Ridge and the rest of her family. If she regained consciousness, but had no memory of the love and life she had shared with Ridge, it would be an unbearable blow to them both. The idea of Brooke losing her memory was a haunting possibility. Ridge feared that even if she woke up, she might not remember the bond they had shared or the sacrifices they had made for each other over the years. Could their love survive if Brooke didn't remember who he was? Would she be able to rebuild her life, knowing that the past was lost to her? Ridge's heartbreaking decision as the days dragged on and Brooke's condition remained unchanged. Ridge was forced to face the reality of the situation. He couldn't continue to wait in limbo, unsure of whether his wife would ever wake up, or if she did, whether she would remember him or the life they had built together. He knew that if Brooke didn't wake up soon, he would have to make a decision about her future. Would he allow her to live in this state, in a coma, with no guarantee of recovery? Or would he have to let go of the woman he had loved for so long, knowing that her pain and suffering might only continue? Ridge's love for Brooke was undeniable, but he also had to consider the possibility that keeping her alive in a state of unconsciousness, with no hope of recovery, might not be what was best for her. As much as he wanted to hold on to the woman he had loved for so long, he knew that the time might come when he would have to say goodbye. In the midst of his heartbreak, Ridge found himself torn between hope and despair. Would Brooke wake up? Could she survive this devastating combination of trauma, cancer, and memory loss? And if she did, would she ever be the same person she once was? The future of Brooke and Ridge as the days continued to pass, the uncertainty surrounding Brooke's condition weighed heavily on Ridge. The question of whether she would regain consciousness and whether she would remember the life they had shared remained unanswered. With the added devastation of Brooke's terminal cancer diagnosis, Ridge was forced to confront the reality of a future without her. But no matter the outcome, he knew that he would continue to love Brooke no matter what. The journey ahead was uncertain, but Ridge's heart was steadfast in his devotion to the woman he had loved for so many years. The future of their relationship and the fate of Brooke herself hung in the balance. Would she survive the challenges that lay ahead? And if she did, what kind of life would she have left? Ridge couldn't say, but he was prepared to fight for her no matter the cost. In the world of the bold and the beautiful, anything could happen, but one thing was certain. Brooke's fate would have a lasting impact on everyone around her. The bold and the beautiful, Brooke's final goodbye, a heartbreaking loss despite the endless vigil, the fervent prayers, and the overwhelming hope that somehow a miracle might occur, there was no miraculous recovery for Brooke Logan. As days turned into weeks, the light that had once filled her life, her family, and her relationships slowly began to dim. The doctors had tried everything they could, but there was no change. Brooke's body remained unresponsive, and the coma that had gripped her since the tragic drowning seemed to be unyielding. Despite Ridge's unwavering presence by her side, and the family's collective hope that she would wake, it became painfully clear that Brooke was not going to pull through. The day finally came when the doctors, after much deliberation, delivered the heart-wrenching news. Brooke's condition had worsened, and there was no longer any brain activity. Her body, though kept alive with medical intervention, was no longer able to sustain itself. The grim reality was that Brooke had slipped away, her final moments lost in the darkness of the coma, never to regain consciousness. It was a cruel irony that the woman who had fought so hard for everything in her life, the woman who had lived through love, loss, and so much more, would ultimately be taken from the world without a final goodbye. Ridge's devastation. Ridge Forrester, the man who had stood by Brooke through all the highs and lows, found himself standing in the sterile, silent hospital room, unable to comprehend the depth of his loss. For years, their relationship had been tumultuous, filled with love, heartache, and the undeniable bond that always seemed to draw them back together. Despite their ups and downs, Brooke had been his constant. She had been the woman he had always turned to, the mother of his children and his closest confidant. Ridge had spent countless hours at her side, holding her hand, whispering words of encouragement, praying for the miracle that never came. Now, standing over her lifeless form, he was overcome with a sense of emptiness that words could never describe. The pain of losing Brooke felt like a physical ache in Ridge's chest. He could barely breathe as he processed the finality of her death. The woman he had loved for so long was gone, and the life they had shared, no matter how complicated, was now a memory. Ridge was left with nothing but the unbearable weight of grief and the haunting question of what could have been. The world, in that moment, felt like it had come to a halt. The future, once filled with possibilities, now seemed bleak and uncertain. Ridge's mind replayed the events of the past few days in a constant loop. The frantic efforts to save her, the helplessness he had felt watching her slip away, the realization that she would never open her eyes again. The questions that plagued him, could he have done more? Had he been too late, were now drowned out by the harsh truth. Brooke was gone. The love of his life was no longer there to share his future with him, and he was left to face a world without her. The heartbreak of her family as the news of Brooke's passing spread, the impact on her family was nothing short of devastating. Her daughters, Hope and RJ, were inconsolable. Hope, in particular, had struggled with her mother's health complications ever since the drowning incident. She had held on to the hope that Brooke would wake up, that they would be able to talk, to heal the wounds between them. But now, Hope was forced to accept the reality that her mother was gone. The grief that swept over her was all-consuming. Losing her mother, especially in such an abrupt and unexpected way, left a void in her heart that seemed impossible to fill. Hope struggled to process her feelings. There were so many emotions: regret, sorrow, guilt, anger, but the dominant feeling was an overwhelming sense of loss. She had spent so much time fighting for Brooke, trying to keep their family together, but now the foundation of her world had crumbled. Brooke had always been there, even when their relationship had been strained. Now, with her gone, Hope had to face a future without her mother's guidance and love. RJ, too, was devastated. His mother had always been a source of strength, and now he found himself lost in a sea of grief. The bond between mother and son was irreplaceable, and with Brooke's death, RJ felt as if a part of himself had been taken away. It was a difficult reality for the entire Forrester Logan family, but none of the pain was more palpable than that felt by Brooke's children. They had been the closest to her, and her absence left a hole in their hearts that nothing could fill. Nick's guilt and remorse for Nick Marone, the sense of guilt was almost unbearable. He had been the one to take Brooke out on that fateful boat ride, unknowingly setting in motion the events that would ultimately lead to her death. Though Brooke's drowning had been an accident, Nick couldn't shake the feeling that he had played a pivotal role in causing her tragedy. His jealousy and impulsiveness had led to the chain of events that resulted in Brooke's near drowning, and now, he was left with the overwhelming guilt of having contributed to her demise. Nick had loved Brooke for years, but the nature of their relationship had always been complex. He had always harbored deep feelings for her, and even though she had never fully reciprocated those feelings in the way he had hoped, he had always cared for her deeply. Watching her slip away in the hospital, Nick felt an intense remorse. Could he have done something differently? Would things have turned out differently if he hadn't been so rash? The pain of knowing that he had been a part of the cause of her tragic fate ate at him. The guilt of losing someone he had loved, and in such a way, was something that Nick wasn't sure he could ever forgive himself for. The family's farewell as Brooke's life came to an end. The Forrester and Logan families gathered to say their final goodbyes. A memorial was arranged, and the atmosphere was heavy with sorrow. The presence of loved ones, family, and friends underscored the profound impact Brooke had had on everyone around her. Ridge, in particular, struggled to find closure. His heart was shattered, and as the reality of his wife's death sank in, he was forced to reckon with the immense emptiness she had left behind. During the funeral, Ridge delivered a tearful eulogy, remembering the woman who had been his partner, his love, and the mother of their children. He spoke of their love story, the trials they had overcome, and the moments of joy they had shared. But in the end, it was the pain of losing her that overshadowed everything. Brooke, who had once been such a vibrant and influential presence in his life, was now gone, and Ridge was left to navigate the aftermath of her passing. Hope's struggle with the truth while the entire family mourned the loss of Brooke. Hope was dealing with her own internal battle. In the days following her mother's death, she found herself reflecting on the complicated relationship they had shared. Despite their disagreements and moments of tension, Brooke had always been a guiding force in Hope's life. But the truth about Beth's paternity, the revelation that Carter was her biological father, still loomed over her, and Hope couldn't help but feel a sense of guilt about the secret she had kept. Brooke had never known the truth, and now, with her mother gone, Hope felt that the weight of her deception would never truly leave her. Hope struggled with whether or not to reveal the truth to Ridge and the rest of her family. She knew that the secret she had kept would be painful for everyone, especially now that Brooke was gone. But at the same time, Hope couldn't help but feel that the truth needed to be known. Her mother had been taken too soon, and Hope wanted to ensure that the memory of Brooke's life was honored, not overshadowed by the lies that had been told. Ridge's new reality as the days passed after Brooke's funeral, Ridge was left to pick up the pieces of his life without her. He found himself in a state of shock, unable to fully comprehend that his love, his partner, the mother of his children, was gone forever. The emptiness that consumed him was overwhelming. Every room in their home felt empty. Every moment without her felt like a painful reminder of the love he had lost. Despite the grief, Ridge knew that life had to go on. He still had his family, his children, and the Forrester legacy to uphold. But nothing could replace the void left by Brooke's death. He would never stop loving her, and the pain of her passing would stay with him for the rest of his life. As time went on, Ridge began to accept that he would never get the closure he had hoped for. But he also knew that Brooke would always live on in his heart and in the hearts of those who loved her. A future without Brooke. As the months passed, the Forrester and Logan families slowly began to move forward, though nothing would ever be the same. Brooke's death marked the end of an era, and her absence was felt by everyone who had known her. For Ridge, Hope, and the rest of the family, the future would be a difficult one. The memories of Brooke would linger, but so too would the pain of her loss. Could they all find a way to heal? Could they continue living their lives without the woman who had shaped so many of their destinies? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: Brooke Logan's legacy would live on, even as the family tried to pick up the pieces of a world without her.